Hello, it's Mary Beth Shaw back with Mad Scientist, and I'm really pushing the limit today. This is a technique that I think I discovered. You know how you never really know for sure because there's other people out in the world experimenting all the time. However, I think I might be the only one who has played with bleeding tissue and stencils. Bleeding tissue, you say? Oh, yeah, it's pretty cool. So let's turn the camera and I'm going to show you how it works and how you might find uses for bleeding tissue that you never knew about. So let's turn the camera. All right, this is my container of bleeding tissue. So I buy it in a couple different forms. I really love these little squares. So it's by Spectra, the tissue is, and it's called Bleeding Art Tissue Squares, okay? And I just get them on Amazon. I know, maybe you don't like Amazon these days, but here's the thing. I don't know where else to get the supplies I need, so I do have an Amazon shop listed, and you can find most of the things I use on there. So the little squares are one way I use it, and the other way is, this is that same brand. I think this is, yeah, Spectra. The name is a little bit smaller on here. See it? Spectra. And it's made by Pacon Corporation in Wisconsin. Pacon Corporation. And this is also bleeding tissue, but it's in the big sheets, the 20 by 30. So we will try it both ways and see which works for us. Now you might see, like down here in my little bin, I have all kinds of extras. And this is after you use it. Look, like this one has already bled. This sounds so strange to say, you know, I gotta just say I'm doing a double take recording this, but this one has already been used, but then you're left with a piece of tissue that is also still usable, so I save those as well. Because, of course I do, that's how I am. Now, the other weird thing you need to know about the bleeding, oh, look at this, I already cut this down, I might use that off the big sheets. The other thing you need to know about the bleeding tissue is that even though it bleeds all over this paper as we're using it, and it can transfer stencil design on the paper, once it's dry on your receiving paper, once it's dry, it's permanent. It makes no sense whatsoever, but I'm just here to tell you that's how it works. So we're going to try a couple different types of paper, and then we're going to let it dry for a bit, and then I'll come back and show you the results. We're also going to try a couple different kinds of stencils as well. Typically, I like using a more detailed stencil because I think it's fun to see what develops from the more detailed stencils, and I don't know, I just have fun with it. And sometimes I use it without a stencil. Ah, perish the thought, but I do. So. And the first thing you do is get your papers together. I have medical headrest paper. This I get off of Amazon. It's basically a really robust tissue, okay? And then I have, this is paper from my printer, and then these are just some tags that I have. So let's start with the medical headrest paper. So the first thing that you do is you spritz your receiving paper. And you know what? I think I'm gonna pause for a second here and get a piece of plastic. You certainly don't need this Teflon sheet, but it'll just be easier to pick it up and move it over to dry. So the first thing you do is spritz the receiving paper. So I have spritzed the receiving paper, and then you put the bleeding tissue down. Next, we'll use two different colors here. How about that? There's one, and ooh, this is a pretty color. put the stencil on top. So I'm using this stencil by DDK-tron, and I think it's kind of cool. So I'm going to put it down on top. Now this does not have as much detail as I sometimes use. I think I'm going to position it this way so that I can pull the most detail off of the stencil. Then I spritz over top, because the idea is you want the spray to go through the stencil openings and hit the tissue. And then you get a brayer, and you brayer this down. You can kind of see that the ink is bleeding out there. I've never tried it on this tissue before. I don't know why not, but I just never have. So I'm going to take a sneak peek and see if it's transferring the way we want. And it is not really. So, I wonder if I have a feeling, since this is such a thin paper, that we might not need to spritz twice. So I'm gonna make a note, 2 spritzes, 1 spritz, so that I can remember that when I go back to these later. So this is the one that had 2 spritzes. Now this one, I'm going to just have 1 spritz. So I'm going to put the bleeding tissue down again. Let's use some orange. And then we'll use this red. Okay, now I'm going to use a more detailed stencil here, okay? This is one by Maria McGuire. This is a super cool, it's a doodle type stencil. Very, very cool. And I'm gonna see if I have another spritz bottle. Oh, that's vinegar. That's not a good one. This is one of those spritz bottles that it releases it all at one time, like the water, so you have to wait for the handle to come back out again. I love it, but it's just a little bit unusual. All right, so let's see how that goes. Got the stencil down, and then we're going to brayer again. Okay. You want to not use it so much. Now you can see, actually, you can see what I can see here is some of the dirty stencil coming back up on the brayer. The stencil is particularly dirty because I like it and I use it and so forth. So we'll see how this one works. I'm going to take a sneak peek, and not so much. We're going to let these dry though. We're going to give them a chance, but it could be that this paper is just not right for this process. That could be the whole problem, but I want to try it. I do know for sure that the copy paper is right for the process. This is the paper from my printer, and I'm going to put this down. I'll put a piece of it down. Now I am going to spritz it twice. Okay, so there's our first spritz. I'm going to use, well, I put the bleeding tissue down first. I'm getting so confused. And I really had to take notes on this because I couldn't remember, you know, which way I was doing it. And anyway, all right, bleeding tissue's down. Not too much going on there spritz-wise. It's not even holding to the paper. So let's see if we can get that to hold to the paper. Okay, and then I wanted to use this super detailed stencil by Daniela Wolf. It's S501. I really like this stencil. So I'm going to spritz one more time through the stencil this time. And then I'm going to brayer it. I'm holding the corner there so it doesn't let go. Again, this is a dirty stencil, so I'm probably going to get some other results on here from that blue that's on the top, whatever that is. But you know, I never mind that. So I'm going to put this one aside to dry, and then I'm going to try the tag. Okay, now the tag's the most robust paper we've tried thus far, so who knows what might happen there. Oh, let's use this pretty magenta. Put it down, definitely grabbing on there. And I'm going to use this stencil of Kristen Williams. It's just got these cool little parts on here. This is one of our ATC stencils, so it's a stitching guide. So if you bought this one, you'd probably cut it down into 9 little ATC size stencils. This is L729. Oh, I don't even know which one to use. I kind of want to use that, but then I sort of want this too. I think I'll use this one. Okay, and I'm going to just spray her over that. And then I shall pick this little tag up and move it to dry. And then I've got one more I'm going to try. I'm going to try this one of Roxanne Stout's S282 Out the Window. I think I kind of want that window. I think it might look really cool to do that window. And let's do it in a green. Let's see here. That's going to be about the right size. There we go. Okay, so I got that, the green, and then the stencil over the top. Another spritz, and we will do that. All right, I'm going to let these dry until they're ready, and then we'll be back and we'll show you the big reveal. All right, we are back, and I can already tell some of these are not going to work like I expected. For instance, this one, I'm going to remove the stencil, and then I've got, these are the two I put on top of tags. And I mean, they're cool. This is a cool background for sure, but you don't see, you just see a hint of something. And I know why this didn't work. This has a coating on it that it allows it to kind of absorb, but I don't know, it just doesn't work right. However, all has not been a failure because the little X's came out on the red here. I don't know if this is going to show up on camera, but that's kind of cool. Plus, I like how interesting that looks. And then look at this one. I love that. So, didn't do what we thought. However, I do find it sort of interesting, right? So that's a so-so win. The other one I did on the tag is after I put the camera on pause, I realized I had forgot to just lay out some so you could get an idea how these would look if you just laid them out. And this is actually super pretty. They did not get as dark as I would have liked, but it definitely gives you an idea of, if you lay them out, how they might look. And I think that that's pretty cool. So I'm okay with that, right? And then over here, I did the same thing. I just put a row of them here so you could see how they would look. This isn't even dry yet, but you can see how you got this intense color and how they bled one into the next. So all I did here was I just wet it and then laid them down on top of the wet area. So, you know, that's kind of cool. You could certainly trim that out and have a nice little border with that. This is the copy paper again, and I really think I messed this one up too. It looks really cool on the tissue, not so much on the receiving paper. I got too much water up here, too much water on that whole side. But again, parts that I would use. So, right? Now, the medical headrest paper is just a loser no matter what you do. Except this came from the top. I have never had it do this before, but then I've never tried medical headrest paper before. So I'm like, well, that's pretty darn cool. So I think that's kind of a win. For the receiving paper, it's cool. It's very cool looking. It's just not what I thought it was going to be. So you can judge that any which way you like. Here's the other piece, and I do love a good watermark. That's pretty cool. So that was with the 2 spritzes. Remember when we did the 2 spritzes versus the 1 spritz? Now let's look at the one that has the 1 spritz. It's right here. And again, I got the stencil. I just don't know if you're going to see this. Yeah, you can see it, I think, now. I got the stencil pattern on the tissue. A little bit on the tissue here, but not on the receiving paper. So strange, so strange, so strange. And I'm pretty sure this one's going to be the same way. Oh, yeah, it's right on the tissue. That's actually sort of cool looking, and it's so sheer. I think that's going to be very cool used as a collage element. And here, it actually did go to the receiving paper just a little bit, not a ton. Let's, yeah, so that might be different when it dries down. And this one, the stencil went on both of the tissues. Then the dirty stencil came off on the orange tissue, which it happened to be blue, so that was a bonus. And it's on this one, which is blue. And then it also came off on the receiving paper. So I'm going to have to say that this was a mixed result. I am going to play with them some more and vary the amounts of water. I think that I was perhaps getting too much water on the receiving paper. I also think perhaps that we don't want a glossy receiving paper or a coated receiving paper. So that might be part of it as well. Now, that all being said, I don't think it's a complete wash because some of these I think are rather cool. This one is maybe my favorite one right here. It's just super cool. So play with this bleeding tissue. It's a great way to make a super quick background, I gotta say. And like these lines, or like this one, I love that. And then these, even though there's just a little color coming up there, I think it would be worth trying that again as well. So play with the bleeding tissues. Get back with me. Tell me what you think, because I don't know. I didn't get the results I was expecting this time, but not every mad scientist is a brilliant one. I just want to give you some ideas and see how it goes from there. I do think, though, that I realize I'm trying to pitch stencils, and I love stencils, but I bet you anything if you, let's get one of these. Let's take this one. And wadded it up a little bit. And then put it down. Yep, you can see it happening right there. You're going to get the folds and the wrinkles. So I think this is worth another look. Bleeding tissue. Try it out. Let me know what you think. Thanks so much for watching.